Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are discussing the book Faces I Have Seen, a memoir of murder, with my friends from the Sherman Oaks Book Club. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
Well, in reading this memoir, I found it different from other biographies that I've read because when he looks at other events and he juxtaposes their stories with his stories, and I just found that very interesting. You can see how he relates, and then at times he's like, okay, this is how I'm different from them. So I just found that very interesting,
to say the least. Did any of you guys find that fascinating to see a criminal defense attorney speak so candidly about his cases and how he feels about these clients that he's representing?
I could see with his profession how he would write this way, because lawyers and attorneys in their profession are very direct and fact-driven. You know, they don't put a lot of color and you know whatever else. And so he writes that way. It's just direct. It's like fact. This is the evidence of my life. This is the evidence of the people that I've represented, and this is, you know, how it is. And it's very, like you said, it's very raw. It's very open. It's very naked, and it's just like it just kind of captures you. It's naked, you know.
Yeah,
But yes.
the naked picture.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's very. It just really grabs you.
Yeah, I appreciated the rawness. You know, you don't get that a lot. Well, I guess you get that in the whoever the biographer is. You know, you get that in their sense. But this one was different. So I appreciated it.
Right.
Yeah.
Did any of you? I mean, when I read it, I could totally see between the lines how vulnerable he was. And this is maybe just a woman's opinion, but masking it with all these like rough opinions, so to speak. Did any of you guys get that feeling? Like there's a lot more that's there than what's being said.
I think it was vulnerable of him to expose his own personal life while telling the story of his cases.
I agree with that.
That was very vulnerable, bold, and I mean, it kind of makes you, a little bit maybe you want to meet him, you know what I'm saying, and get to know more about him. It's kind of scary as a woman. Like, I don't know, do I want to meet him? Do I not? But it definitely makes you want to just know more about him.
So to me, it's more than an autobiography. To me, it's kind of more of a study of who this person is compared. It's a mirror to the people that he's surrounded by.
Why is he attracted?
Yeah, why is he attracting these people? And he himself, he sees himself in these people. You know, and I just think that part is very interesting and fascinating. And you know, because the stories are a bit scary, you know, it's kind of scary too. And I'm sure for him, having to take a look at himself through these people, I'm sure he found out a lot about himself too as well. And
A lot of times there is a thin line between the law and the lawless.
Right.
And you see it a lot of times in cop shows and stuff, but they never really show it from a lawyer standpoint.
Right.
And this, he identified with them a lot, more so than he would admit to them. And at times, it's like he almost wanted to run from the fact that he identified with them so much.
These stories forced him to question his own views on certain things and allowed him to grow through his own pain, which you definitely see through here. You know, so it allowed him to kind of grow.
But there's definitely strong opinions in this book about women, and he kind of goes back and forth.
it made me want to delve more into his psyche to find out, you know, what has actually happened, you know, all the things that's gone on in his life to make him feel that way about women.
right.
You know?
I think it goes back to that psychology thing and getting into who this person is and what you know, why, just the why does he view women this way? You know, what happened that, you know, I would say us, you know, that not even just black women, but just women in general, that put us in this interesting category for him and the people that he's surrounded by. You know, it's a lot of the pussy and a lot of, you know, stuff that for us, the people, and the way that we might associate with that word, that means a certain thing, you know, and that means you see that woman as a certain type of woman.
Right.
And there aren't too other, I don't know if I'm generalizing, but there aren't too many women that aren't seen that way.
Right.
So the balance is definitely, you know, it's heavy on one side versus the other sort of women, you know, that I'm sure he encounters.
At the same time, I felt like it was a catharsis, if that's the word that I could use, Because it struck me as this wasn't something he would just sit down and talk with his boys about. This was a forum for him to kind of deal with those issues. To put them out there and to realize that he has those issues, or to see how deep those issues are, and to in some way deal with them. So I kind of saw it as a catharsis in that aspect. And also, you're dealing with murder on a daily basis as your job, so you need an outlet for that as well. So
you really wonder what's going on inside that person's head, and then you want to wonder what's going on inside somebody else's head. Like, what do people really think? And it's just I can see how someone involved with someone like that would be hard for them to go on and trust someone else. You say don't take your baggage with you, but what if you meet someone who had gone through something like this? It's kind of hard not to take that with you.
Also, I think it might make certain women ask themselves questions, the ones that may be in that situation, because if you think about it in these stories, these women accepted these situations. Like his mother accepted that. Although she didn't like it, she said, "I'll stab you and break the knife off this and that," she still accepted it. The other women that were, they accepted it. It was not right, but they did accept it, and that's a certain psyche as well.
Right.
To be able to sit back and accept someone cheating on you, someone abusing you, and this and that. That's a whole thought process as well. And there's a reason for that. Like it might be therapy for him, therapy for readers, and there might be a man who's, I don't know why I point you when I'm saying this, but a man who's in that situation where he's cheating on women and abusing women and whatever else, and you're like, whoa, it can go to this level. I need to really rein myself in, because I'm not trying to be Mr. George.
Right. He's working it out. It's not necessarily that he feels that way, but that's all he saw and knew. And so when he's representing these people, he gets it. That's really what it is. He gets where they're coming from because he saw it growing up.
I've known people who've come from kind of rough backgrounds, and you could kind of go in two directions.
Right.
You can kind of stay down that path, or you could become driven to overcome that and become something else.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I've known people who have taken the other path and become driven and try and overcome that and become very successful. So in a way, I'm not surprised.
Right.
That didn't really surprise me.
This book brought to light for me what criminal defense attorneys must go through representing clients. It was definitely, before I read it, I never really gave much thought to, how they might feel.
He said that majority of his clients usually admit their guilt to him later.
Right.
It's like these people are guilty, yet you have to defend them. You've had all this stuff happen to you when you're a child. You see all these guilty people, and you don't necessarily like all that, but here you are, you have to defend these people, in their guilt and this and that. It's just two different.
I think the lawyer's choosing that case. You can say yes or no.
So because he dropped the not like me. He decided he didn't want to represent him anymore.
Right, and so over and over and over again, he is choosing to put himself in that environment, in those situations, and so that to me is like, how does a person choose this?
It's not like you can't tell the ethnicity of any of these characters.
Right.
It could be anybody, really.
That's very true.
It's like I want to see this play out week to week.
We're working on it.
Because it's not even, it kind of puts me in the mind of Law and Order, but not, you know what I'm saying? It's as interesting as Law and Order was, or is, but it's more interesting because it's personal to him, and crimes are grittier.
Right.
So it makes for really interesting reading and very vivid.
It is very dramatic, very page turning. Especially, I started to think about. So we're all kind of the same. We don't know this life pretty much, and I was thinking about people that do know this life, if they would be just as intrigued by it. you know, or if it's kind of like, oh, that's the way it is, you know, and we're kind of like, that happened, what, you know, so I'd be very curious to see, you know, people from different perspectives, different backgrounds, that they react to. It sounds, we collectively kind of reacted the same way, and I find it very dramatic. I find it very interesting, and of course, he writes in a way that brings you into these characters, and that's what kind of keeps you going.
You need to check out Faces I Have Seen, a memoir of murder by Ted Johnson. Good job, Ted.